The shrill sound of sirens cut through the quiet luxury of the neighborhood as flashing lights painted the towering mansion in red and blue. Neighbors peeked from their windows, whispering as officers rushed toward the marble steps. A frantic call from the richest man in town had brought them here. Inside the mansion, a billionaire stood red-faced with anger, his silk tie crooked and his voice echoing against the golden walls. His trembling hands pointed at a woman in a modest maid's uniform, her brown skin glistening with sweat and her wide eyes filled with confusion and fear. "She beat my son," he roared, his voice cracking with fury. "I caught her, my own maid assaulting my boy. I want her arrested immediately." The room fell silent for a beat. The woman's lips quivered as she tried to speak, but her voice came out in choked fragments. "No, sir, I would never. I love him like my own. I didn't." "Enough," the billionaire barked, drowning her words. His wealth and power were enough to make people believe anything he said. His son, barely 7 years old, sat quietly on the velvet couch, his small hands folded on his lap, his eyes darting nervously between his father, the maid, and the officers. The lead police officer, a man with a hardened face but compassionate eyes, stepped forward. He crouched in front of the boy, lowering his voice so it wouldn't sound like an interrogation. "Son, is this true? Did she hurt you?" The boy swallowed hard, his voice trembling as he spoke. "No, she didn't hurt me." The billionaire stiffened. "Don't be afraid, son, tell the truth." The child looked at his father, then at the maid whose tears had started rolling silently down her cheeks. He shook his head. "She didn't hurt me. She saved me." The officers exchanged puzzled glances. The billionaire's eyes darkened. "What nonsense are you talking about?" The boy's little voice grew stronger, though it carried the weight of fear. "I was climbing the stairs with my toy truck. I tripped. I would have fallen all the way down, but she caught me. She hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe for a moment. That's why I cried. But she didn't beat me." The room grew so quiet that even the ticking of the golden grandfather clock echoed like thunder. The billionaire's jaw tightened. He looked at his son, speechless for the first time that evening. The officer rose to his feet, his gaze shifting between the child and the billionaire. "Sir, it seems there's been a misunderstanding. This woman doesn't appear guilty of what you accused her of." The billionaire tried to regain his authority, adjusting his tie. No, you don't understand." But his son interrupted him, his voice breaking into sobs. "Why would you lie, Daddy? Why would you say she hurt me? She's always kind. She sings me to sleep when you're too busy. She makes me laugh when you're yelling on the phone. She's the only one who listens to me." The maid covered her face with her hands as tears streamed freely. The billionaire's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time he seemed smaller, stripped of the towering aura of wealth and power. The officer turned toward the maid. "Ma'am, are you okay?" She nodded shakily, wiping her face. "I'm fine, officer, thank you. I love that boy. I'd never lay a hand on him." The billionaire's son ran across the room and wrapped his little arms around the maid's waist. "I told you I'd protect you," he whispered, his words muffled by her uniform. The billionaire's face turned pale as guilt settled over him. He realized how easily he had been willing to destroy someone's life with an accusation that wasn't true, simply because of her position and her skin color. He thought his money could shield him from consequences, but his son's innocent words had exposed his cruelty for everyone to see. The officer gave him a long, disappointed look. "Sir, I'd suggest you be more careful before making accusations that could ruin someone's life. Not everyone is as strong as this woman or as brave as your son." The police left quietly, their sirens fading into the distance. Silence filled the mansion once more, but it was heavier than before. The billionaire shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting toward the maid and his son. I overreacted," he muttered, his pride still clinging to him like armor. "Maybe I misunderstood the situation." The maid looked at him with exhausted eyes. "You didn't misunderstand, sir. You judged me before listening. You judged me because you could." Her words cut deeper than any insult could. The boy pulled at his father's sleeve, tears still clinging to his lashes. "Daddy, say you're sorry." The billionaire froze. Apologies were foreign to him, something reserved for people beneath him. But in that moment, with his son's innocent eyes staring at him, waiting and with the weight of shame pressing on his shoulders, he whispered, "I'm sorry." It wasn't grand or eloquent, but it was enough to make the maid's lips tremble. She nodded once and looked down at the little boy. "Thank you for telling the truth, sweetheart." The billionaire watched as his son clung to the maid's hand, refusing to let go. In that moment, he realized something terrifying. His wealth could buy him loyalty, respect, even fear, but it could never buy him the pure love his son had for this woman. That night, when the boy was asleep, the billionaire found himself packing in his study. The golden-framed portraits of his ancestors seemed to stare down at him, reminding him of the legacy he was shaping. He had nearly destroyed a woman's life out of prejudice and pride. He had nearly taught his son that power was stronger than truth. For the first time in years, he sat down at his desk and wept silently. The next morning, when the maid arrived, suitcase in hand, ready to leave, she found the billionaire waiting at the door. His eyes were tired, his voice subdued. "Please don't go. I was wrong. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but my son, he needs you." She looked at him, her heart torn. Part of her wanted to leave and never look back, but then she thought of the little boy, his laughter, his trust, his tiny arms around her waist. She sighed deeply. "I'll stay for him, but not because of you." The billionaire nodded, accepting the terms. Over the weeks that followed, he tried, awkwardly at first, to repair what had been broken. He spent more time with his son, listening instead of lecturing, playing instead of ignoring. He even tried to help the maid in small ways, carrying a basket, sharing meals at the same table. Slowly, the walls of arrogance began to crack. One evening, the boy sat between his father and the maid at dinner. He smiled brightly, his small hands holding theirs. "We're a family," he said simply. The billionaire's throat tightened, but he didn't argue. For the first time, he realized that true wealth wasn't in his gold or his fortune. It was in the people who loved him enough to tell him the truth, even when it hurt. The maid looked at him quietly, and though she hadn't forgotten the night he tried to destroy her, she saw change in his eyes. A man learning, stumbling, but trying. And the little boy, innocent and brave, had been the one to teach them all that truth and love are stronger than power and prejudice. The mansion was still filled with marble and gold, but now it was also filled with something more precious: humanity. Because of the words of one small child, lives were changed forever.